So as you just heard, this Chevy needs a new water pump. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of doing that. We're going to get started by pulling the air intake boot off. You're going to squeeze the little tab right here on the bottom, push and rotate the vent line off. On the opposite side here, there's going to be another one. On this one, the tab is going to be on the top, so you're going to push it down. And then once you've got it pushed down, you push and rotate it out like this. Now we're going to loosen the hose clamp here at the throttle body. Loosen that clamp there. And then right here at the air filter box, we're going to loosen that clamp and then go ahead and remove the air snorkel out like this. When replacing a water pump, it's a good idea to replace the thermostat as well. On this vehicle, it's right here. So to do that, it's just a couple of hoses. You're going to remove the vent line here and then the hose right here, the clamp right here, and then 3 bolts. That's what we're going to do first, is we're going to get these hoses off and out of the way. We'll tackle the actual removal of the thermostat here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to get this out of the way. You want to have a bucket underneath just in case there's coolant in your vehicle. All the coolant leaked out on mine. Next, we're going to remove the belt here. So there's going to be the tension right here. We're going to put a 1/2-inch drive ratchet in here, torque it over to the left, and then take the belt off. So like I said, you're going to torque it over to the left like this, and you can remove the belt. But you want to pay attention to how the belt is routed so you can get it back on right. This one's a pretty simple routing, as you can see here. Not a whole lot going on, so just remember that. So as you can see here, the one on my truck here is pretty roached. It's pretty bad. So if you notice, the pulley here has holes in it. You're going to stick a socket, a 10mm socket, through these holes once you line it up with the bolts. So you'll rotate it till you find the bolts, and then you're going to go ahead and remove the bolts in these holes. So here's a diagram of what I'm talking about. Once you get one of them lined up, all of the bolts will be lined up. You just remove all the bolts. You may want to have a magnet when you do this, so go ahead and take out the first one. And then once you get that removed, you might need a magnet to pull that out and just move around until you have all the bolts removed. So there's going to be 6 10mm bolts in total. So you're just going to go work your way around and remove all the bolts. Once all the bolts are removed, you should be able to pull it off just like this. Now that the water pump is removed, you're going to go ahead and clean up the mating surface here. There shouldn't be any silicone or anything like that. Just wipe it down and you should be good to go. I'm using a Gates replacement water pump here. I will link up all the parts and tools that I use in the description of the video. So if my water pump, it came with a new set of bolts and a gasket. The bolts already have thread sealer on them. If you're reusing the bolts, you want to put thread sealer on this before you install the water pump back in. So the water pump goes in a certain way. If you look, there's a pilot hole right here that lines up with dowel pin on the block of the car here. So you're going to line that up with the dowel pin here. So you got to match up your water pump gasket with the dowel pins and everything. Make sure all the bolt holes line up. Now, most likely when you go to put this on, it's going to want to float and twist and move. So what I like to do is use a little bit of 3M super weather adhesive. It's a little bit of a glue that you put on the mating surface of the water pump here. You just put a thin layer of this stuff, and I mean a thin layer. You don't need a lot. And then you glue the gasket to the water pump. It won't cause it to leak or anything. I've been using this product for years and years, and it's a great product for this type of application. Once you got the glue on there, I like to put the bolts in backwards like this through here, and that'll line everything up and hold everything in place until it tacks up. So it takes about 5 or 6 minutes for this to tack up, and then once it's tacked up, then we can go ahead and install the water pump. So after 5 or 6 minutes of tacking up, now we can take our water pump and put it in. We got to remember where the dowel is right here. It's at the top right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bolt through here at the top, just like this through here. Now I'm going to reach down and install it with that bolt already in there. So I know exactly this is the top bolt and it's lining everything right up. So I can see everything right here. Now I can start this bolt, and now after that's started, then I can go ahead and run around and start all the remaining bolts. So now I'm going to run all 6 of the bolts in. I'm going to do like a star pattern like you would do your lug nuts on a vehicle. So I'm going to run them in all until they're snug. Now you can torque all the bolts down to 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds. And you're going to do that in that star or crisscross pattern. Once you get that done, now we can go ahead and start removing the bolts here for the thermostat and swap that out. It's always a good idea to swap out thermostats when you're doing cooling repairs like this. It's just cheap insurance. And on this vehicle, it's only 3 bolts and a gasket here. No big deal. Just want to make sure you got the mating surface cleaned up. So we're going to be using a factory replacement one. If I can, I'll link this up in the description. If not, I'll find you a quality one that you can use. And that way, if you need to pick these parts up, you can find those in the description. So go ahead and run that down until it's snug and tighten them down to the 10 Newton meters. Or the 89 inch-pounds. Make sure it's inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. Then you can go ahead and install the 2 hoses and the hose clamps back on. Since our water pump was so bad, I decided to go ahead and put a new belt on this vehicle. You can reuse them if they're still in good shape. So we're going to route this the way we took it off. To make it easy, I created this little loop you see here. So then I hooked it around behind the pulley like this. So once it's behind the pulley, like this is the tensioner pulley. Now you can go ahead and route this over towards the alternator, and then you can put the other half around the crank pulley here, and then we can get our ratchet and then torque the tensioner over and then slip it over the water pump right here. Now we're ready to put the intake boot back on, so I'm just going to slip it on the air box over here, put it back on the throttle body, tighten the clamps on both of them, and then we're going to put the 2 vent hoses back on. Once you got these tightened on, the vent hoses just rotate back into position, and you just pull them in until you hear them lock into place. So each one takes a little bit of finessing, but you can wiggle around, and then you'll hear them clip on. So we're ready to fill it up with coolant. I'm using the pre-mixed Dex Cool, so it's already 50-50 mixed. This is the orange stuff. You want to fill it up to the line right here. You'll see the fill mark right here. And then you want to run the vehicle, start the vehicle up and run it until the thermostat opens up. Also, a tip for bleeding the cooling system here is to put the heater on inside the cab on high temp. Put the blower speed on like a level 2 blowing out of the vent here, and you want to wait until you feel hot air coming out of that. In the meantime, you want to go back and forth checking your coolant level. As the thermostat opens up, the coolant level may drop a little bit and you need to top it off. The way you tell if the thermostat is open or not is the upper radiator hose over here. You can put your hand on it and squeeze it, and you'll feel it get hot. When it's closed, it's cool to the touch, and then once it finally opens, it'll get hot, and that coolant level may drop down. You may have to adjust it. Don't overfill that bottle. It's made to expand, so just fill it up to the full line, and you're good to go. If you guys need any of the tools or parts, I'll have links for it down in the description of the video. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching and encourage you to subscribe.